Hello, my love. Welcome to tea leaf readings. My name is Lenore, and today I'm going to be reading your tea leaves. Thank you for being here with me. I know the world is, well, it's, you know how it is. But I thank you for deciding to look at some divination and to click on this reading. Maybe you have seen a tea leaf reading before. Maybe you haven't. If you have some background in it and you maybe follow particular methods or, old prescribed ways, fantastic. That's not exactly how I read. Although I would argue that I read in the most ancient way, which is however the heck I want to, right? That's what I feel like most of us who are deeply into divination, we end up doing, right? You have to. Listen, if you're doing multiple readings a day, you better find your groove, your own style, right? Or it really, it becomes a chore. It does. Yeah, like anything else, right? All right, let's get started. We have the number, it looks like, I'm going to go with 2710, 2710, if that means anything to you. We also have what it appears to be, I'm looking right in this area over here. We have the number 500, 500, well, maybe 5005, 5005. But here I see we have a person that looks like here's the head and the body down into here looking down. I get a sense of study of, possibly prayer. It could be prayer. In this kind of leaned forward, deeply into the text, into the thought, into the vision. I know when when I do active imagination, or I'm receiving visions, or I'm just kind of getting into a relaxed state so that I can open my mind into my interior passageways. I'm often sitting, crisscross applesauce, leaning forward. When I look into things, I am almost always looking down into a squared area. Sometimes a circle, but gazing downwards into something, like as if it were this. It could be anything, though. I'm just looking at the floor, gazing, right? So when I see this posture, to me, it really is this kind of deeper study of something. Okay, there's a devotional, almost surrender to it, a vulnerability. Because, baby, you're not protecting your neck, are you? But there's safety there, right? Safety in the exploration, in the pursuit of the mystery, the unknown, right? And I gotta sit up. I'm like leaning right into the camera. Right. Speaking of leaning forward, right? So there is a sense of you being in maybe research mode. Maybe you are just kind of like deeply into those interior landscapes. You might be in what people call, kind of like dissociative, which, listen, I feel like all of us are kind of master dissociators at this point, with technologies and this widening crevasse between reality, or base reality, what we consider to be the physical world, and how we exist within these shared sub-realities like the internets, right? And all of the avenues that leads you down. So we're really good at not being where we're at. We're really good at time traveling. We're really good at being in two different realities. I mean, quite literally. Not to mention, you got video games, you have, music, you have television, books. I mean, whatever kind of media, really, meditation, exercise. There are all kinds of ways to get out of the immediate, right? But like, we're all carrying around our portal in our pocket, and not only that, we're addicted to it. So we're all really good at dissociating. When you find something that you can commune with, to be with, I liken finding a new interest, a hobby, an obsession, a fixation, a favorite thing, very much like finding a person that you are in love with, right? Or you fall in love with, that you're interested in, that you are building with, right? You are creating a shared reality together, a courtship of, it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be friendship, companionship, whatever. But to walk into something that you can totally be in is like having a relationship in a lot of ways. At least how your body, maybe your emotional systems, your nervous system, it experiences it in a similar way, right? It hits those same places, the dopamines, the serotonins, all that. So I do feel like this is something that it doesn't feel as though you're like, lacking or being forced to, right? Like you have to go off to college and study something. I don't know, figure it out, figure your life out. What do you want to do with your life? It doesn't feel like that. It feels like, I found something that really speaks to me, something that I want to have a belovedness, with, and you are indulging that. You are doing that. You are there communing with that. So we have that right there. Now, we also have, it looks like a person here. We have two people on either side. Now, we also have what, to me, it looks like, it looks like a tree, really. Above it, we have a bird who is kind of perched on top of the tree. And I feel like this is almost like maybe, well, it's family. It's the tree. It's the tree of life in a lot of ways. It's our histories, but it feels like you've had to start over, because if you look at the tree, it does not look like a vast network at this point. Now, my tree would look a lot like this too, because I am, though, genetically related to people, I walked away from my family tree, very with complete intention, right? And now it's not one-sided like that. Like anything else, it's very nuanced, and it is a lot of things, and it's, whatever. So let me just be clear about that. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not, you know what I mean? I realize that I don't think anybody I know watches my readings, but I realize that, oh yeah, people can just watch what I'm saying. So I do want to be respectful, which it is true. There's trouble, of course. There always is when you leave your family, but people are people. People are people are people. And it's all love. It's all good. Best wishes. But it's good to be able to begin a life, which isn't easy. But when you do, you start building that family. You start having your own family. You have chosen family. that kind of thing, which I would recommend, right? Being open to choosing your family. We don't have to abide people that, make our lives more difficult or hurtful, or, there's abuse or pains, within that. And I think we live in a time where we don't stick around. We don't stick around if things are, if they're not right for you, and I know that some people hear somebody say that and say, well, you just give up. No, I don't give up on anything that's important to me, but I'll tell you what, I'm not going to upkeep something that doesn't mean that much to me. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes when our relationships with our family are so fractured, like over time, and it's maybe not one big thing, it's a lot of things. And I think a lot of us have felt this, right? Sometimes it is. You have to walk away and start a new life, a new world. Sometimes you have to do that more than once. And that's really, you get that Queen of Wands energy. So to me, I feel that you have decided at some point that you are starting over, and you have done that. I think that you are in that. Now, I do also think that there are times where the grief of, remembering an old life can be overwhelming for you. I absolutely do. And I think that probably at times, and I'm being very presumptuous here, but I think at times you can feel like you can't share that openly. Okay. That's something that, okay, I've had my cry a few times and now I just got to get over it. Nobody needs to hear, all my problems and old things that I lament. And, you have a family and a new life now. And why should I have any right to sullying any of that with the old thing? And I think a lot of people feel this way. They think this way. I don't know if that's right or wrong. You're just a person trying to live your life, just like I'm a person trying to live my life, trying to survive the day. You know what I mean? But what I do know is that when we try to abandon parts of ourselves, our stories, our being, our feelings, our impressions, our whatever, our histories, they don't go away. We carry that stuff around. And, as Jung teaches through the example of the shadow, or the archetype of the shadow, or this concept of a shadow, where we put the things that we don't want to face about ourselves, or the things that are difficult, or the things that we acknowledge but we are not willing to participate with or integrate or process and integrate, right? They sit in these dark corners and they seep out. And oftentimes, let me just say, you know this, I know this, but it's worth stating as many times as we need to. The people around us can see what is going on with us sometimes more than we can even begin to admit to ourselves, right? Or we think we're doing a good job of suppressing it, right? Or pretending it's not happening. Now, I am somebody that's like, I read people constantly, both, I would say, whatever you want to call it, psychically, I guess, or whatever, but through pattern recognition, through micro expressions, through, all the things, like, are you sweating a little bit? What does your jaw look like? What are your hands? Are you, how are your shoulders? Like, what are you saying? Are you making eye contact? All the things. I'm sure it drives people crazy, which I don't care, because anybody who's in my personal life is the same way. They do the same things. They might not like it being done to them, but baby, we speak the same language. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, I feel like there's like this sense of like nobility and being able, not nobility, like, I mean, big time, like I'm Big Papa, you know, Big Mama, you know, flossing out because I can hide my emotions, my reactions, my whatever. I don't think it's like that, but I think that there's this kind of like, oh, I've met the standard of the local social mores, however we're supposed to act here, right? Which is very distinct regionally, even sometimes, right? Like, I live in the upper Midwest now, babe. It is so much different than where I grew up. I grew up in Sacramento, in California, right? Born and raised, moved out of there college years-ish, and came to the Midwest and was like, what is up with these people? Like, nobody's screaming at each other. Nobody's like fighting in the middle of the street. Nobody's like telling you to go, you know, can you imagine on the, you know, freeway or whatever, like screaming out the window, you know, down the boulevard. Just hyper aggression, you know. I mean, that's really when the heat hit, oh boy, you know what I'm saying? Like, my goodness. I grew up in the 90s, you know what I'm saying? Like, in the smog, in the valley with the fire, smoke, air hanging over us up against the foothills there, where all the rich people lived up in like Folsom and, you know, up in El Dorado Hills and all that. You know, it was a rough child, you know. And then I moved to the Midwest. I was like, these people, they're passive aggressive 100%, and you do not, like, once you get the wrath of somebody in the Midwest, bro, like, it's like they'll never forget, and they will edge you out. Like, it's like small I don't know, I live in a small area now. It's just different. Like, the politics of it are different, right? I like it because I don't like to, I'm not a confrontational person, but I'm not a punk. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I like living in a place where it's like, all right, let's just, like, agree to disagree. We don't have to like each other, but we're going to respect each other. You know what I'm saying? You know, and so I feel like for you, there's this sense of, yeah, there's that stoicism almost, but it's like it's spilling out at the seams sometimes. Let's just be real. And the people around you, they already know. Like, they might not know all the details. You might not have shared the details of your past life with them. But they know, they feel you, they see you. You're part of them. So I feel like this is a big part of your work in this next cycle, is learning how to be able to maybe not dwell on things. Like, you don't have to, like, roll out a PowerPoint thing and, like, tell them about all your trauma and you know, all of this kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be like this formal coming out type of deal. But I think that for you, it's like incrementally learning to allow yourself the space and really to me, it's about worth, right? Like, do I deserve to, like, be having my emotions in this space? Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And this is a part of, like, where I go nuts with people. And it has really, it's really, really highlighted for me now having a child. When people are upset because now listen, if they're screaming and they're throwing stuff, you know, I get it. There are certain, like, pitches and things that kids do that you're just like, oh, okay, come on now. But if a kid is just crying, a baby's crying, you know, a kid's, mom, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm, you know, whatever, and people get annoyed and angry about that almost immediately. Like, there's no room in our society for people having emotions and expressing their needs, and maybe doing that in a way that doesn't feel neat and put together and whatever. Get out of here. Like, actually show me that's how you feel, because I don't want to be around that. I don't want people like that in my life. I know there's a time and place for everything, but babe, it is not as complicated as we as societies have made it. And you know what happens when we're repressing all this stuff? I mean, health issues, social issues, both in the home and in the streets, in the business places, in the schools, in the whatever. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that this is a time where I feel like you are learning that, yeah, you are an innately worthwhile, valuable, whatever being. And it doesn't even need to be stated, but like, a lot of us need to remember this. Like, you are alive, you are a miracle, you are the composition of just so many points of phenomena and data and fragments of light and sound and element and all of this stuff, so perfectly coming together in this moment, in these many, many moments, but in this moment that we are looking at right now, who you are, what you are, you deserve everything. I mean, you are everything. You know what I'm saying? So, this is the work. This is the work. Now, we also have a goat. Okay, so you have somebody younger, possibly. I feel like maybe sibling, maybe child, maybe one of your children. There seems to be a sense of just not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Not staying on track. And I feel like there's almost this sense of having to like continually save them, which you're not going to stop doing. Let me just be real with you. You're not ever going to give up on your people. But I do think that you're going through a period of time where you are rethinking maybe like what it is to help somebody versus like enable somebody. And I think that's a big thing. That's another point of work, right? That a lot of that has to do with our self-worth as well, right? A lot of times we get into these dynamics with people where we end up enabling them, not just because we want to fix them or help them or make it better or whatever. It's because it makes us feel something. It makes us often feel like, okay, now I can breathe because they got what they need, or they're, I know where they're at right now, or, whatever it is. We fix this thing, we'll get on to the next problem, and and we live in this perpetual cycle of like trying to make things, work or be okay, or just like hang on, keep this thing together. And, it only degrades. It only becomes, the problems get deeper, they get more rooted in. And the reality is it's very selfish. The enabler ends up being just as much of an addict as the other, right? Because you are in a cycle of making choices that usually anyways, that you're aware are not good choices. They're not helpful choices, right? But we have that virus in us. right? That thing, that mind virus that comes along with addiction, and it takes over whole groups of people. It really does. And so I'm not saying that this is like you're dealing with an addict or anything like that, but you might be dealing with somebody. Listen, let me just back up and say everybody's addicted to stuff right now. I mean, anybody you meet is addicted to something. I don't care if it is a substance, if it is media, if it is, just, again, dissociating, being unavailable to the world, like, you know what I'm saying, like TV, food, whatever it is, I don't know, but we're all caffeine, sugar, all this stuff. So I feel like this is a point where you're realizing, like, hey, I need to, and again, I'm not saying that you're going to dip on your people, not at all. But I think it's kind of a reorienting, maybe setting some boundaries, making very clear rules of what you will and will not do. Right? No more bailouts. I feel like that's where we're at with that. That's really what I think you're getting to. It's like I'm not fixing it anymore. And I keep looking at this. It looks like a person's face with their arms up, just kind of like, okay, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like that. Right now, I'm finished fixing this for you. I don't know. It feels like almost like maybe it's somebody who isn't meeting their bills or something like that. It doesn't feel like a very super, like some huge ordeal, but I think it's a behavior that you've seen a lot, right? Now we have a person walking. It looks like it says N. We have 17 and then 2. We have a person, it looks like standing here. You can see the head, but also we have the word no overhead, considering. It feels like considering. We have over here the siren, so a distraction. And it looks like very volatile because we have the volcano, right? That's smoking. You can see the smoking. So I feel like this is in the romantic sector. Somebody who you keep going back to, somebody like when things feel lonely or, I don't know, it just, even in your own relationship maybe, you've been trying to leave, you are done, and then something happens and you feel like, vulnerable or what is familiar, at least it like kind of dulls the pain of the thing and you keep going back to it, and I think, this is a time where you're just like coming into these realizations where it's like, I am not going to keep living like this, like, I just accepting whatever type of life, or you've built a life and you've gotten to the place where it's like, I've done the things, I have, the life that I thought I wanted, and then it sucks and you feel like you can't get out of it, or which I think happens with people, and now I'm not saying you just like abandon everything, okay, because I don't believe that either, but what I do think is that we have to work on so much of our lives constantly. Now, I'm not saying that we have to change ourselves, because we're not changing ourselves. We're changing the variables. We're changing the constitution of the thing. Right? We're adjusting, we're tinkering with aspects of our life, okay? And to make it operate more smoothly, I would think, right? With more power, with more efficiency. Okay, 53. That's the first lucky number. 53. 93, 93, 93, 93. Everybody. 53, 93, and... oh, baby. 85. 85. All right. Well, I'm going to say I love you because I do. Thank you for being here with me. If you want to like, subscribe, or leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you. Other than that, we'll talk soon. Take care of yourself. and goodbye.